Well, Congress is kind of broken, but the White House can still do plenty to fix the national problems. Now, I don't know if it's going to restore Biden's popularity because his popularity has been up and down in the first year. Now, Biden doesn't need Manchin, even though kind of we still do. We can't afford to have him defect from the Democratic Party because then if he goes from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party, then the Democrats lose the majority. Now, the thing with Manchin is that he he's listed as a Democrat, but he's a closet Republican along with Sinema. Um, but let's break it down here. Democrats are feeling utterly demoralized these days. Anyway, this week, the closet Republican Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia finally came forward and said that he admitted that he never had any intention of voting for the President Biden's Build Back Better plan. Now, the supposed Democratic pivot to the voting rights lasted about as long as a carefully constructed cake on the Great British Baking Show that was demolished by the Senator Kristen Sinema of Arizona, who's a closet Republican also, whose corporate masters are skeptical of letting people pick their own leaders. It's become clear to Democratic leaders what the progressives have been saying for months now. These two senators are far too corrupt to let any progress happen any further. And it's very reasonable to worry that the next year will also be a waste of time, as any hope of getting anything done goes down the tubes, the economy suffers, and Biden's popularity continues to hit the decline. But the situation doesn't have to be as dire as it seems, and Congress may be broken, but there's plenty that Biden can do without them. He and some of his more important appointees just need to find the guts to use that power that they already have. But this is a lesson that Biden's old boss, President Barack Obama, also learned the hard way. Stymied by an obstructionist, GOP-controlled Congress for most of his presidency, Obama leaned heavily on executive orders and the regulatory power of the White House to reenact reforms on climate change, immigration, and healthcare. And Biden himself has already learned. He's already leaned into this power in some regards on the environment, school safety, and fighting the pandemic. But still, as Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has argued on Twitter, there's far more Biden can do to turn the ship around before the 2022 midterms, and here are the 5 things that they can do. Number 1, arrest and charge the people who conspired to overthrow the 2020 election. One reason that Trump's attempt to steal the 2020 election failed is many of the Republican elected officials that Trump leaned on to break the law for him were more afraid of jail than they were of Trump, but the Department of Justice has failed to arrest and charge any of the ringleaders despite an extensive evidence of guilt, including a taped phone call of Trump telling Georgia Secretary of State to falsify votes for him. But that just signals to potential conspirators that they can help Trump steal the election in 2024 without any worry of criminal charges. Attorney General Merrick Garland could change that by getting aggressive about charging Trump and his co-conspirators for election interference and criminal conspiracies, and this would have the added bonus of making the continuing conspiracy to overthrow the government harder to execute, as the primary leaders will be in jail or preoccupied with court proceedings, making another conspiracy harder to pull off. Number 2, forgive any student loans. After learning that Manchin was torpedoing the Build Back Better, Goldman Sachs downgraded their economic forecast, predicting significantly slower economic growth. One main reason is the child tax credit, which Manchin reportedly believes working parents will use to buy drugs and will disappear, shrinking American wallets and thus consumer spending. Now, this is a guy who's fucking rich as fuck. He drives a fucking Maserati to his yacht, but he's worried about the poor working class going out to buy drugs which they can't afford to buy if they're poor. See, yeah, Manchin's a real fucking piece of shit. But there's another way for Biden to get money into the pockets of the very same people who benefit from the child tax cut, namely people working in their 20s and through their 40s. As Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's a Democrat from Massachusetts, had told voters in September, the President of the United States has the power to cancel student loan debt on his own, if he chooses to. Student loan forgiveness would have the same effect as the child tax credit, freeing up finances for millions of Americans and infusing the economy with cash. Nor would it only benefit the elite, as critics contend, but as a Brookings analyst shows, having student debt is now a marker of relative disadvantage because it's held largely by people whose families did not pay for college, and therefore the beneficiaries of cancellation will be the lowest income subject of the student loan borrowers. Number 3, ban any unvaccinated people from airlines. Now, this is something Biden should have done months ago, and if he had, it would have dramatically stymied the walloping of the Omicron variant that is about to deliver to the country's hospital systems as the unvaccinated spread the virus throughout the holidays. And still, it's better late than never. Biden's employer vaccine mandate continues to be tied up in court, taking away one of the only tools he has to actually get shots into the aims of the millions of Trumper holdouts. But unlike the employer mandate, Biden's authority to regulate safety protocols for domestic travel is irrefutable. It's the power that he's already using to acquire masks on planes. A vaccine mandate for air travel would send a strong signal that Biden isn't messing around and reassuring his voters he's doing something to end this pandemic. Plus, it might actually save a lot more lives. Number 4, instruct the FDA to take up the cause of the over-the-counter abortion pills. Now, research shows that the 2-pill regimen to abort an unwanted pregnancy at home is safe and that patients can handle the instructions without guidance from a doctor. And plus, the pregnant people are already getting and using abortion pills without a doctor's supervision anyway. But a practice that will only escalate once Roe was overturned in June, as it's expected to be. The FDA under Biden has already loosened restrictions to access to abortion pills for these reasons. And it's time to go all the way up and make it legal for patients to get the pills directly from a pharmacy with no prescription necessary. And this won't make abortion legal in states that ban it, but it would go a long way to relieve the trauma and pain that's caused by those bans, allowing people to purchase the pills in a state where it's legal and get them to people who need them in states where it's not. It would also be a strong sign of support from the Biden administration to the women of America. Yes, Republicans hate you and want to take away your healthcare, want to take your healthcare away, but the Democrats are doing everything in their power to stop that from happening. Number 5, this is the last one. Legalize marijuana, which is what I'm on board for. I am all for the legalization of marijuana. Now, Biden can't single-handedly legalize marijuana, but he can reclassify it under current law. So possessing it is a far more minor crime and lower law enforcement priority. As Pennsylvania's Democratic Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman said, he is running for Senate next year, and he told McClatchy that marijuana is the big bazooka, and whoever owns legal weed nationally, it's all gravy. Now, it's not just that legalizing weed is particularly popular. There is a 60% approval nationally. 60% basically are in favor of approving it and legalizing it anyway. It's the sort of policy change that will filter down to the low information young voters the Democrats need. A lot of those folks tune out when politicians talk about voting rights or the child tax cut. But if they know that Biden supports their right to smoke up without going to jail for it, they might actually start to pay attention more. It might also be a rare opportunity to pass something through Congress, and there are actually quite a few Republicans who support decriminalizing marijuana, so much so that there's a very real chance that Republicans will get down to the issue if Democrats won't do anything about it. But as McClatchy puts it, there's a growing chorus of Democrats calling for full legalization of recreational marijuana, which includes Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York, among other party leaders. But there's a lot of young voters up for grabs, and the right is certainly circling them through outlets like Joe Rogan's show, but Biden could become a hero to them all if he gets on board with this plan. Now, as AOC noted, Biden has been neglecting his executive power for about almost a year now, out of what appears to be a misguided belief that a functional Congress is possible in its current iteration. So there's plenty more beyond these five items that Biden could tackle, and it's possible that Congress could get better in 2023, but that requires electing more Democrats, ideally enough that Manchin and Sinema's votes are no longer necessary to pass the bills, and for that to happen, voters need to see some more action coming from Biden. Now, these items may not fix everything that's wrong with our country, but they would capture people's attention, and often the attention of people who barely pay attention to politics anyway, and it proves that Democrats do care and aren't just twiddling their fucking thumbs, but this in turn may be the juice Democrats need to get the real power going to do things before time runs out on Biden's first term. So if you liked the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.